Good evening, Cheeseheads, and welcome to another special edition of the Cheese Room podcast. I'm joined this evening by the one, the only, the unstoppable Austrian English bloke that is HG. How are you, mate? Have you dried your eyes yet? Are you okay?
Yeah, I've dried my eyes a little. It's still kind of tough to take, but I suppose what happens if and Austria just didn't really have enough going forward to all the Italians, but it's, today's been okay, and yeah, it's not very too much. You just hope.
We're losing your audio a bit, mate. We're losing your audio a bit, so you might have to have a play around with it. Obviously, this evening we've got lots to get through. We've got lots of Spurs and Euros news for you tonight, Cheeseheads. Firstly, we're going to review all of the Euros action from the last 2 days. We didn't get online last night because of the extra time it was taking to complete the games. And we've got some Spurs news. We've got transfer news. We've got a little bit of a manager discussion coming up. Hopefully, HG's tech holds up for the duration of the broadcast. HG, I didn't quite get your first response about being over the disappointment. Are you okay? Do we need to send anyone over?
No, I am okay. I am okay.
You can't do the whole broadcast on mute. Just let's be clear about that. So, Steven Gerrard has been named this week in the Tottenham press, as it were, being linked with the Spurs job. So firstly, I want loads of interaction from people. So if you're watching the show for the first time, hello and welcome. If you're watching on catch up, likewise, welcome. Please do like, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We're trying to build our YouTube presence to be as much of a bastion for YouTube as we are for Spotify, where you can listen to the Cheese Room podcast and also available on Apple Music and all good podcasting platforms. But please do give us a like, and don't forget we are running super chats tonight, so do get your comments in. We will try to get through as many as possible during the show. But if you select super chats, you will get right to the top of our agenda and our priority list. HG, so Gerrard, are you a fan?
Yes. I mean, to be fair, I don't really follow Scottish football, but I've seen what he's done. He's obviously taken Rangers to the league title. I think they were unbeaten all season. So yeah, I don't think you can be unimpressed by what he's achieved, even if it is at perhaps a lower level. I would suggest it's better than what Lampard had done. I think it's better than what Solskjaer had done before they got their jobs in the Premier League. So. And I think for a lot of Spurs fans, he is still a known quantity, even if it's just as a footballer. We kind of know what we're going to get with Steven Gerrard. So I think there are lots of reasons why it might be a good idea.
Mm. And, just for the people who don't watch Scottish football, what has he done in Scotland? So Rangers, obviously champions at long last this year, haven't been for a long while. Celtic have had complete dominance, haven't they? But what's he brought to the club? What's their style of play? What's their ethos? What could we expect from a Gerrard appointment?
Well, if he tries to play the same way, then it's I don't want to say a traditional 4-3-3, but he likes to get the wing backs forward. Or wing backs or the full backs forward, really, to create the width, and they flood the midfield and they flood the central areas. Obviously, Rangers are one of two big teams, so they only really have to worry about Celtic. But I think it's more about how they've gone about it. Like Celtic have been a bit of a shambles this season, but Rangers have shown them up. I mean, you can't really argue with what Rangers did. They got to maybe the quarterfinals or the last 16 of the Europa League, which for a team in Scotland is really good going. I don't think you can look at them and think, well, he's not done enough. But having said that, I do think a major part of Gerrard's appeal is the fact that we know him as a player, and we know that he played with passion, and that he obviously he was more than just a passionate player. He had fantastic technique, but he understands the mentality of a football fan. He played like one, I think, certainly one with better football skills than me, but he did play like a football fan. And yeah, I just think for a lot of it is that he's a known quantity. That if we have the players to play the same way, then that would work really well. But I'm not sure we do. But I just think that for someone that the fans could rally around, Gerrard's not a bad idea, even though we know, probably deep down that if the Liverpool job ever came up, he might ditch us
I'm sure it will.
before the year.
I'm sure it will before long. That's the thing. Klopp's been there a few years already. He's sort of hinted about being unhappy this year. And as Lucas says, the only problem if we hire Gerrard is Spurs are just a stepping stone for him to Liverpool. Is there any way we could avoid that, HG? Lock him in with some massive, punitory clause in his contract? What do you think?
I think that if he does make the step up to Liverpool, which is what it would be, let's face it, then he would have done well at Spurs. Then they're not going to appoint him if he's done a bad job at Spurs. So, I understand we don't want to be that stepping stone club, but if he did move on, like any manager or any player, if they do move on to a bigger club, a higher level, it's usually because they've done really well for us. Don't get me wrong, it is concerning because we know that how much Liverpool means to him. But I think that right now we have to think that Klopp will be there for a while. If things with COVID change and he can go home to Germany more often, then that might be better. There's a lot of things to go on with Klopp and Liverpool, but from Spurs' perspective, it's an okay move. Maybe from Gerrard's, it's not really what he wants, but from our point of view, there are lots of positives.
And look, old Brendan Brent has done really well at Leicester, hasn't he, after dominating Scottish football? So there is some form there for a guy who's done well in Scotland to come around and do that in the Premier League, isn't there? Or is that a tenuous link?
It was a bit different because when Brendan was in Scotland, Rangers were in the division below or two divisions below. He didn't really have to worry about the main rivals in Glasgow, but Gerrard obviously has, and he's overtaken them. And I think there's a comment here from Phil Ambrose. I'll just read it out, make it easier. But he said that when he took over, Rangers were level with Aberdeen. You can see it there. So, if it was a 3-horse race and he's turned it into a 1-horse procession, I mean, it doesn't really matter what level you're at. You've clearly done well. If that happened in Portugal, we'd all think it was amazing. I think the guy at Sporting Lisbon, Amorim, has basically done that this season, taking what is usually a 2-horse race that doesn't include Sporting, and he made it Sporting's title. So, as I said, there are negative things if you want to look at it. There are positives as well. But from a fan point of view, he's just much more known. And I think for many fans, that's enough.
Yeah. Here's a question. Here's another thing I want to put to you. So David Harris writes, Levy wanted Belgium out tonight so he can point Martinez. Now, there's a lot of we're going to just briefly gloss over Martinez. I know we talked about it previously. A lot of hatred for Martinez from what I've seen on the Twitter sphere. Mind you, there's hatred for literally everybody on Twitter, if I'm being really honest. So you can't read too much into that. But a lot of people sort of dissing Martinez. Look, I know he got Wigan relegated, but Wigan were a very small club and they were up against it. Should we be discounting him so quickly? I mean, is he the man that Levy wants and the man that's worth waiting for at the end of it all?
I think that it's probably right not to discount him. He's obviously not a bad manager, but I don't think he will come in and do what maybe a manager will need to do. Everyone talks about him doing really well with Belgium, obviously got to the semi-finals of the last World Cup. They do have a lot of very good players, and crucially, they have some decent defenders that he's not really had to work with. Like Toby and Jan, as we know better than anyone, they've played together for so long that you couldn't ask for a better partnership to be at the back. Yes, they have a third one starting tonight with Vermaelen, but I just feel that there's so little evidence that Martinez knows what he's doing from a defensive point of view that, the players might like him, but as Spurs fans, we know that our defence is usually our weak point, and so.
But we're Spurs. We believe in attack. From that perspective, he's perfect for us, isn't he? He certainly gets teams firing.
I mean, the first season with Everton was decent, I think, if memory serves me right. It's been a long time now since he was even a club manager. But I don't know. It does feel a little bit like we'd be hoping that it would be 2012, 2013 again when he was winning stuff and keeping Wigan up and helping his reputation. I think a lot of people thought he was lucky to get the Belgium job when it came up because at that point, obviously, Belgium were I would say, like, one of the best squads you could hope for. I mean, we all knew the quality they had, and they were just going to get better. We'll see. Obviously, they won tonight, so that's a great result for them. We'll see if it turns into something. If it turns into an international trophy. They got pretty close in the last World Cup. Maybe they can do it this time. I don't know. It's tough because it has been so long since he was working with players day to day that you really don't know what you're going to get. And I mean, anyone who listens to these videos or podcasts will know that I don't love the German manager Joachim Löw at all. And
I think that's a slight understatement, HG.
It is an understatement, but they're different jobs. Being a club manager and being a national team manager are completely different. And some can do both, some can't do either, some can only do one. You just don't know. But you'd like to think that Martinez would have learned from whatever happened before the Belgium job. And yeah, again, there are probably worse options, but I don't think it's one to really unite the fans. It's not one to make you really think this guy can do what Pochettino couldn't. I think we'd be lucky to see the kind of success that we had under Pochettino, to see it again.
Well, I mean, there are virtues for me. I mean, there's a few comments coming in. Another one from Phil. We do like Phil on the show. Hi, Phil. My overriding memory of Martinez was the 9-1 game where his Wigan was being. We know what happened there. He did absolutely nothing to try and stop it. I'm sure that's probably not completely true, but. Yeah, I mean, they took a thumping that day, but you can't judge a manager from one result. You can't, no matter how tempting that is. Nick says, talk to Everton fans about Martinez and see what you still want him. I mean, are you saying that they will be waxing lyrical about him, Nick? I'm not sure what you mean. That I'm taking it that you think they wouldn't be.
Look, I mean, can I say that to me there are two types of attacking managers, right? I mean, because let's put it out there. Like, I think there are lots of managers that will say, "I want to play football the right way. I want to keep it on the ground. I want my centre halves to pass the ball out," and that's great. But from what I've seen, the best attacking managers are the ones that actually say, "You know what? My defenders, I don't really want them to have to work. I don't really want them to have the ball. I want to make their life as easy as possible because my front six are so good that, in theory, they're just covering up. They're just mopping up at the back." And Martinez isn't one of those. He's the first kind of manager where it was going Emerson Boyce and, I mean, Paul Scharner and players from that Wigan team who, I mean, they were the Premier League level at the time, but they disappeared quite quickly afterwards. So look, I think that lots of fans would rather see an attacking manager that actually focuses on how they're going to play the game and what they want to do to impose themselves on every opponent. With Martinez, it did kind of feel like, hey, I'd be better if I had better players, but this is how I want to do things. And Spurs, well, we will never have the type of players that Man City have or that Liverpool have. But as far as I'm concerned, the reason those two teams and even Chelsea are as good as they are is because they play with a plan. And the managers know that the best way to win the game is to stop the opponents having the ball or to press high up the field, gegenpressing, as Klopp calls it. That to me seems to be missing with Martinez. And I mean, again, we saw it tonight with Belgium. They are great going forward, but it felt like a basketball game in those last 20 minutes, and it didn't need to. There wasn't
fun though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like, it would be a lot of fun. You'd probably get entertainment for your money. That's for sure.
Aussie RD Mark II, surely. No, we're going to score one more than you.
Yeah, if it worked, we'd all be behind it, right?
Absolutely. I think, Martinez, look, I know he's got a couple of blurs on his copybook as far as the Premier League is concerned, but he's done a pretty good job at Belgium, hasn't he? I mean, he's not really done that much wrong, has he, HG?
No, I mean, this is it. I mean, 2016, I don't think he was in charge yet, so I think he came in after then. Qualification for a squad like Belgium is usually pretty simple. I think they may have won every single game, if not, 98% of them. The question is what you do in tournaments, and Belgium beat Brazil in the last World Cup. That's always going to be a really good result, no matter who you are. And they were perhaps unfortunate that they had France in the semi-final because, like you're seeing this time, that was the tough side of the draw. England and Croatia got to the semi-final on the other side, and Belgium, maybe the World Cup final, actually the two best teams were in their semi-final. So you don't know. I don't think you can ever look at Belgium and say a semi-final result for them is bad. because they are a tiny country, 10 million people. For them to get that far and people to consider it par says a lot about where they are as a country.
Yeah.
But like it's tough because you don't know how much of it really belongs to Martinez, or is it the fact that they've got Eden Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne and Lukaku, who are three of, I mean, certainly in the last couple of years when Hazard was still good.
Lukaku was not always all that when he was at Man United, was he?
No, I mean, I think Lukaku was fine, but Lukaku will say himself that he's improved a lot since he joined Inter. He's much better at holding the ball up than he was. And so, yeah, they have a really good first 11, maybe first 13, 14. After that, it's a lot of youngsters that might still play in Belgium or are not as established as the bigger names. But they're in need of a few good defenders to come through. I think that's their big problem. When Jan and Toby age out, which will be probably in the next 18 months after the next World Cup, then Belgium might go back to being maybe where they were beforehand. But it's tough to judge Martinez based on the Belgian squad he has, because how much of it?
Some questions. I just thought of a fun game off the top of my head. Right, Ten Hag or Martinez?
Actually, given the choice, I'd probably go Ten Hag, if I'm honest. And I'm not a big fan of his, but I think that there's more of a plan with what he tries to do. So I would go Ten Hag.
Fonseca or Martinez?
Yeah, again, Fonseca. Maybe it's because I want the unknown to be better than what I think I know already. I'm not one to say better the devil you know when it comes to attacking things. Fonseca did a pretty good job with Rome this season until injuries started to bite. So,
and I guess you're going to say Gerrard or Martinez. Gerrard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that being the case, Martinez. You know where this is going. Martinez or Gerrard or Fonseca.
I would probably, given that choice, probably go Gerrard.
Gerrard or Ten Hag?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a really tough one, because then you are Ten Hag, and we talked about this in our little Patreon group earlier. Winning the title with Ajax doesn't mean you're a great manager. Frank de Boer, I think, has proven that, having won it 4 times in a row with Ajax. With Ten Hag, I think you do have to look at how Ajax performed in Europe. They got to obviously the Champions League semi-finals when we beat them. They got to the Europa League quarterfinals this year. They're not a bad side. I mean, again, they lost a whole load of players after they lost to us. So because I think that Ten Hag seems to be quite a dour person. Having seen videos in Dutch where they've interviewed him, he's not the most charismatic of men by the looks of it, or maybe he just doesn't like doing press stuff. I don't know. I would be tempted to go Gerrard, but in those two, it really is toss of a coin stuff.
So basically, today Gerrard has moved to your achievable favourite candidate for the job, pretty much.
I don't know if he wants Spurs, but I mean, maybe from Spurs' point of view, he might be achievable. But I just think that, given how important the fans will be to any new manager that comes in, right? I mean, because Spurs fans, even if we love the manager, it takes a while for us to get there. We're always quite critical to begin with.
Yeah,
I think it would make sense to try and limit that as much as possible. And we know we've got, what is it, Man City, Chelsea, and Arsenal in our first 6 games. We need to get off to a good start, and maybe the fans would be a bit more lenient with someone who they felt, or who they identified with more. And I don't think that Spurs fans would identify with Fonseca, or maybe even with Ten Hag. I think that it's the amount of rope that Spurs fans give their manager is key. Because I mean, we saw with Pochettino that the first 3 months of his reign
were terrible.
Yeah, things weren't great at all. And when Kane came along and suddenly things started to click.
He says it in his book. He thought he was out the door after 6 months. He even said to Jesus and his Tony Jimenez, pack your bags, guys, we're going, because the form is terrible and Daniel Levy sacks people. so he expected to be sacked at that point. So and the Spurs fans were calling for his head some of them, you know. So I think it'll be an interesting thing, like you mentioned, how much rope the Spurs fans actually give him. And there's not a lot of goodwill around at the moment, particularly on Twitter. I love this comment from Alana. Frank de Boer linked in the morning.
Please no. Please no. I mean, look, you looked at the Dutch team. Yeah, okay, they won 3 games, all at home, all against somewhat ropey opponents, and I include Austria in that. Austria didn't have their best player, or certainly their main striker, in that game. Frank de Boer, no.
Yeah, we'll come back to that game.
No,
yeah, we'll come back to that.
No.
Okay. Not for you, not for me, not for anybody. We'll move it on. There's a transfer story today. Yes, a transfer story. Apparently, I know it's hard to believe it. Apparently, Paratici is already looking to try and strengthen the squad, and basically, he's kind of accepting the fact there's no manager there, so I may as well just crack on with it. Spurs have got interest in Bologna defender. I'm going to have a go at saying this, HG. Are you ready for this?
Go on.
You've braced, yeah. Takahiro Tomoyoshi.
Yeah, I tell you what, the first name I'll give you. That was really pretty good. His surname less so, but I will tell you, his surname is Tomiyasu, but he goes by Tommy. That's what he wants to be called. That's what.
But let's just call him Tommy.
Probably it would be.
I like him better already.
If he signs
like a British squaddy in World War II, yeah.
Can we not talk about World War II when we're playing Germany in a couple of days' time? It's just not a good idea.
By the way, if anyone's just in North, there is more to my T-shirt than North. The caller does not live in the North. Let's be clear about that. Move on. HG, go.
So like Takahiro Tomiyasu, as the name suggests, is Japanese. I think he's 22. He's a centre-back / right-back. I think his first season in Italian football, he played more as a right-back, and then this season moved inside. But I guess he's not your typical Japanese, if I can say that. I don't know. He's quite tall. He's quite quick. And he's done really well since he came to Europe. Played a season or 2 in Belgium, then got the move to Bologna. And like what I know about Bologna is that they are looking to sign young players from around the world. There was a Spurs defender called Lewis Binks who went out to Montreal. He was really highly rated and just decided that he wasn't going to get game time at Spurs and left at like 17 or 18. Went to Montreal. He's actually been signed by Bologna. So he's, I think, still at loan at Montreal now, but he's a player for Bologna. There's a young Scottish defender called Aaron Hickey who's out in Bologna too. So I think Bologna have seen the light and thought this is the way that we can make ourselves relevant and hopefully make a bit of money in the process by selling these players on. Yeah. And Tomiyasu could be that fit. The report I read, and I have to say it was in the Sun, so we have to take it with a pinch of salt.
You read something in the Sun? Did you not just look at the pictures?
No, I didn't really want to click on it, but it seemed to be the only available report, which again might tell you enough. But they mentioned in this report that if he came in, then he would be playing right back, because obviously that's a position that we need. Although he might be good as the right side defender in a 3, but also that Joe Rodon would be then allowed to leave on loan, which strikes me as being a bit, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I don't know, but I think Tomiyasu. We can't ignore the fact that he comes from a market that Levy would like. There are a number of Japanese people that would obviously want to come over and stay in the new Spurs hotel and watch the Japanese players play.
The new Spurs hotel is about 5 years from being built, so let's not get carried away.
But you know what I mean, right? The idea is that there are people that would, if they are traveling, the Japanese people, they don't seem to be quite. They're not the poorest country in the world. Yeah. They like to travel. And so, look, I don't think it is just a signing for business purposes. I do think he's good enough to be a member of the Spurs squad. But, if you can get a win-win situation, then why not, right? But yeah, Tomiyasu, you want to have players like that joining Spurs. We've said before, this painful rebuild has to happen, and we want younger players to be part of it. So let's hope that he is one of them. I'm quite hopeful that he does sign, because I think that for Spurs it would be a good move. I think it was again only linked at 15 million, which granted,
perfect.
In COVID times, even if it's not in COVID times, that's still quite cheap for a young prospect. So I'm pretty happy with the thought of him joining.
If you're watching for the first time tonight, do please give us a like and subscribe. It would be great to get those subscription numbers up. Stuart Fensham says, who would you prefer, Tommy or Anderson? Or does it have to be one or the other?
I would love both. I don't know if I think I've done this publicly, but I'm not a fan of many of our centre halves at all, and I would be happy to maybe see
Toby +1.
Yeah, well, 3 of the 4 can go, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if they're ever going to be as good as maybe I want them to be.
Hang on. I'm going to call you out on something here. Didn't you have Eric Dyer as your profile picture for about 18 months?
Oh, longer. Eric Dyer was my favourite player for a really long time. Like when he came into the side, and the season when we finished third, right, and we had that game at Stamford Bridge. Like Eric Dyer at that point was the player that Spurs had been crying out for many, many years. Someone who wasn't going to take. Basically, if I can't get the ball, I will get the man, and that's it. Things have changed since 2015 or whenever that was, 2016. So, look, I love Eric Dyer as a player. I love him as a person, but I don't think he's Spurs' future. He does count as a foreigner, which obviously works against him. I like that he's a leader. But I don't really see him as a centre half. I know he does, so it's a problem. But yeah, I would not be.
Anderson. Talk about Anderson.
Anderson. Well, Anderson to me is like Toby was. He's in a year on loan in the UK, and hopefully Spurs can be the one to sign him. And like, there are rumours that we are the club he wants. I don't really know how or
He's
why
insane.
That's come about.
He's a masochist. He wants to come to Spurs. He's heard Daniel Levy is going to put X amount of bonuses in his contract, and he wants some of that action.
Every player wants to play, right? And you can't look at that Spurs defense and think, I'm not going to play here, right? Like if Toby, as far as I'm concerned, Toby is our best defender. Toby's 32 now, will be 33 by the end of next season. He's on his way out. If you want to come in and be a pretty big money signing and be the number one for the next 4 to 5 years, which Anderson may well become, then you want to do that. Like I don't know if Anderson sees himself as going to one of the really big clubs, but Spurs are a massive club. We are a top 10 club on revenue, granted, but we are a top 10 club in the world. He gets to live in London. He clearly likes it after being at Fulham. So look, I definitely want Anderson, but I think Tomiyasu could come in as well. I really do. I would be looking for a number of new defenders.
Franco says Anderson is looking at defence last season, thinking he can't do much worse. Yeah, I can't argue with that, to be perfectly honest. HG, changing the subject ever so slightly. The Euros. How are you feeling? I've got a banner here ready. There we go. HG heartbreak as plucky Austria crash out to Italy. How's that?
I think it's probably fair. Like I don't know if heartbreak is the case because having been an England fan, you tend to.
I'm a Spurs fan.
I still am an England fan, but you tend to expect defeat. I thought that Austria would play better than everyone expected, and they did. I think that the tough part was knowing that they were, a VAR review away from probably winning that game, because obviously it wasn't seen offside at the start. Had they not reviewed it, it would have counted. And Italy was struggling, and Austria looked like they had their number. So when it went to extra time, I did feel that Italy's extra firepower off the bench would come in, and that's what happened because it was 2 substitutes that scored. But it sounds cliche. Like I'm proud, right? Like Austria weren't expected to really do as well as they did. They certainly weren't expected to win people over by how they played, which is what they did. So, like, I think Italy will learn from it. I think Italy will be better in the next round. But yeah, it was just a shame. There were plenty of things about last night that I thought were a shame. I was annoyed it was played at Wembley because no fans were really allowed to be there apart from, the Italians or Austrians that live in London or live in England. That made it harsh because the real, true Austrian football fans, and there are a few, just weren't able to go. So that was a shame. But I guess when you dress like Arsenal, you deserve to lose, right?
You deserve to play in a stadium that's empty. It must have felt right at home, just like the Emirates. Yeah. I mean they were unlucky, weren't they? I thought they were the better side for much of that game. Italy just had the extra bit. The extra 10% is what I'd say. But I thought they put up a tremendous fight, HG. And they were my adopted third team as well. And I was disappointed they crashed out because I honestly thought when that header went in from who scored that?
Arnautovic.
Arnautovic, of course it was. I thought when that header went in, I thought they've got me. They're going to take it down. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be. God damn VAR.
We're seeing a lot. I mean, every single game so far in the knockout stages, first goal wins, right? I mean, that's what's happening. And so, yeah, it was always going to be a key moment, if not the key moment of the game. But I think as far as Austria are concerned, they do need a better striker. Arnautovic is in his 30s now. The guy who came on and scored for them from the corner is 23, 24. So
that was a great header, by the way.
It was a great header, and he could end up being that guy. But I think that they're missing something still. But they've improved so much since I moved here. I can't tell you how bad they were in 2005, 2006. That for them to have a team of players who are playing, abroad, even if it is Germany, but playing in a better league regularly, week in, week out. That didn't happen. That really didn't.
By the way, Sabitzer looks perfect for Spurs, doesn't he, Sabitzer?
Well, I mean, I've said it many times. I don't want Sabitzer at Spurs. He did miss the sitter. That's true. Like, he's a worker bee. He'll give you 7 out of 10 every game. There aren't too many negatives about him. I just don't want him at Spurs. We all know how I feel about which Austrian I do like. But I saw a comment from Phil Ambrose, which I'm going to put up now. Xaver Schlager, the midfielder for
he looked
Austria.
good. He looked good.
He's a really good player.
Who's his club team, HG?
He plays for Wolfsburg in Germany. So he'll be in the Champions League this season with them. Mark van Bommel is his new manager. It's a weird situation at Wolfsburg because their manager left the club after getting to the Champions League. He left and went to a team that was in the Europa League for this season. But Schlager is. He keeps things simple. He's not afraid to defend. He's not afraid to attack. He makes good decisions, apart from one. There is one decision about Schlager that means he will likely never, ever really come to Spurs, and that is he's an Arsenal fan.
Oh, Jesus.
And a pretty big one, too, by all accounts. Like I know so was Doherty, and I know that so was Aurier, and Sissoko, and a whole bunch of players that have then gone on to play for Spurs.
Kane.
But if Schlager has a choice... maybe Spurs won't be it, but he is he looks like a henchman from Die Hard. That's always a good thing. But he's a really good player. I think Schlager was probably Austria's best player of the tournament. He was good in every game.
I'd agree with that from what I saw. And then my second team, I'm a quarter Welsh, unfortunately. So my sort of second team was Wales, and look, I don't know what to say about it. They were just outclassed by a Denmark side that looked really good. I've got to be honest, HG. They looked great. I mean, I had high hopes when they went into it. First 15 minutes, they had a good go. Bale saw one fizz past the post, and then he sat on his arse for the next 80 minutes. They were just outclassed, weren't they? Denmark just too good at the end of the day.
The big difference, Denmark started with a back three, and then very early on decided we don't need three against this big lump of a striker. Vestergaard 6'6" anyway, you could handle him in the air, and they moved Christensen forward into midfield, and that really did turn the game. After that, it was a bit of a procession. Like, the first goal again is always important. It was a brilliant goal from Dolberg to break the deadlock, and after
Goldberg.
that, I think from Goldberg, as you would say, Dolberg. But
who's next?
Yeah, so like it's it was a tough result for Wales because like they are the type of team that could get something from every game, but I think Denmark's extra quality in the end told. They do have good options, and they have a system that works for them. So Wales might be looking for a bit of magic from Ramsey or from Bale, but if you don't get that, you're struggling. And Denmark. You might look at their.
It gets them through the qualifying, doesn't it? Nicely, but in terms of you look at when they're playing the big guns, there's just not enough there.
Hey, Wales did really, really well to get to the knockout stages. Like qualification is not simple for anyone,
Yeah.
even in the Euros, where how many teams are in it this year? 24. Like it's almost half of
Like
Europe get to
half
qualify.
of Europe.
But it's not to be sniffed at that they managed to qualify. And I can't remember who it was they beat. Was it Turkey that they beat?
Yeah.
That's like Turkey were some people's dark horses beforehand, and yeah, like it might have taken a bit of magic from Bale and Ramsey to win that game for them, but they certainly did what was expected, if not more so. So I just think that with Denmark, their players are a bit more experienced and probably have better technique. And so even though people like Braithwaite is at Barca and Dolberg is at Nice, like Braithwaite's not playing regularly for Barca. He's basically there because of a silly rule before COVID. He wouldn't be there otherwise. But they have good quality players that play at a high standard, and I feel like it's a relatively settled Danish team too. I don't think any of them are particularly new. I don't know, but yeah, 4-0 probably flattered the Danish a little bit, but it was certainly a deserved win.
Well, I've done it again. I've left my beer in the house, so I'm going to go and take one quick. Can you just take some questions while I?
Yeah, no problem at all. All right, so here's a topic that I love. Yes, Lucas, Konrad Leimer. He is the Austrian player that I would love. He's a central midfielder by trade. Spent almost the entire game for Austria playing on the wing. It's not his position. He's not a right winger. He's not a left winger. But he did that for the team, allowing Sabitzer to move inside and to try and counter Italy's threat from the fullbacks, with Spinazzola being their main man. So Lima I think he played really well. The next comment, yes. Thank you, Marco. I know what you're saying. I can see it. Sweden, Ukraine, England, Germany, Denmark, the Czechs. One of those is going to be quite happy that they haven't played anyone really good to get to the final. The England Germany, obviously that round of 16 match is going to see one of them knocked out, but I think we're going to have a distinct underdog in the final, because even if Germany or England get there, there's a good chance that from the other side of the draw, the team that make it will be just in better form or have better players. But that's the way the draw has worked out, and for England, for the second time in a row, have managed to find themselves on the good side of the draw. Let's moving on.
What did I miss?
Got here? So Stuart Fensom talking about Turkey. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Turkey again, like good players, but it never really worked for them. They weren't really sure if they wanted to be a real defensive team and play on the counter, or to try and attack. That Cengiz Under didn't play many minutes. I was surprised by that. So yeah, Turkey are one of those players maybe one of those teams where the team just didn't really function. And I mean, the first game was always tough to have the opening game in Italy against the Italians, and suddenly the second game became all important to them, and they had to win, and they ended up losing it, so they were out really quickly. And Savitzer, I think he's a decent player, but just not for Spurs.
Well, so yeah, Wales out, crashed out. So I've got one team left, and we play on Tuesday night. But we're going to cover the preview for that tomorrow night. If that's right with you, HG.
That's fine with me. Like I've already spent far too long thinking about what Germany should do and what England should do, as opposed to what both countries probably will do.
Well, we'll get into that tomorrow. Czech Republic surprised everybody, breezing past the Netherlands in the end 2-0. I mean, they were helped by that sending off, weren't they, massively?
Yeah, key moment of the game. And it's one of those decisions where, like, that De Ligt knew what he was doing, but I don't think he ever expected it to be a red card. And I think that was... It felt harsh, because it was a bit of pushing, really, from Schick to get to the ball. I think they could have left it as a yellow. Perhaps I'm slightly biased because I used to live in Holland, but even, I mean, a 0-0, like we've seen teams do well at 0-0 and still go on to win the game. And the Dutch just never really got going after that. De Boer made a few bad choices, and the Czechs dominated. So yeah, okay, obviously it helped that the Czechs did get the goal pretty soon after the sending off. But then again, like they're not a bad side. I feel like we've seen this a lot in this tournament, and people have slagged off England for doing this. But those teams that are defensively solid will probably go the furthest. And we've seen Portugal they've scored a load of goals in this tournament. Ronaldo's top goal scorer with 5, but they're out because they couldn't score tonight, and Belgium got another clean sheet. So I think that. Like the Czech Republic, obviously they'll love the fact they've got Denmark in a quarterfinal. The game's in Baku, so nobody will be able to go.
That's That's going to be a cracker, actually, isn't it? Two teams that I'd almost put up there with the favourites.
It'll be interesting because they are on the good side of the draw, but I think that the Czech Republic prefer to be the underdog, the obvious underdog. I think they felt that way against Croatia. I think they felt that way against England. It was only really the Scotland game where they probably walked in and thought, we have to do something here. The Dutch game again, underdogs. There were so many Holland fans in Budapest today. I just think that against Denmark, how are the Czechs going to approach it? Are they going to be as safety first again? How are the Danes going to approach it? Are they? I don't know. I think I would like to see the more attacking side go through. And therefore, I think it's Denmark. But for the Czech Republic, again, getting to the quarterfinals is a massive achievement because
get out there and get money on them now, Denmark. Get out there and get money on them. I tell you now, they were. I was listening to the radio on the way home from work today. 250 to 1 at the start of this tournament to win it, and they're now at 11 to 1. But they're playing the best football, I think, out of any team in it. They really are. They look super impressive right now, Denmark. And obviously they've got a lot of people behind them because of what happened to Eriksen and that whole narrative as well. I just think they're a good bet. They're a good bet, HG.
Yeah, and as Marco proved with the teams on that side of the draw, like if they did beat the Czech Republic and they're in the semi-final, England, Germany, Sweden, Ukraine, I mean, they're not going to be really afraid of any of those. Let's be honest. Like, obviously, the Germans are the biggest name there, but there's a long way to go, and you have to focus on the next game. But there's always going to be someone who's thinking, like, we have a chance here. Like I felt that way in the last World Cup. A semi-final against Croatia. Like, England may never get a better chance to get to a final. In my lifetime, I really felt that way, and so when it didn't happen, that really was gutting because it felt like a missed opportunity. And I suspect any country on that side of the draw will be looking at it thinking, all we need to do is get through each game. But then in a one-game final, anything can happen. So it does make it kind of interesting that you get these kind of lucky, plucky countries that think it's their one chance of doing something. And then on the other side, you've got all the really good teams hammering each other to try and get to the final.
Just to get there. Yeah.
And of course, the Germans find themselves in the right place at the right time, which tends to happen. But it's, I don't know. Like, it's probably not fair for people like if you support Belgium or Italy that have had a tough game just to get to the quarters.
Yeah.
But look at Holland. They thought they had an easy game. They were doing cartwheels when they realized they weren't getting Portugal, because they thought they could get Portugal as the third place team. They didn't get them, and they got knocked out anyway. It's you just never know.
That's what happens. Lots of Tottenham stuff coming in on the chat. We're going to come back to that in a minute. Finally today. By the way, question for you. Gareth Bale, did you see his reaction when he was asked about retiring from international football?
Weirdly, I've seen the video of the reaction, but I don't really know what he said or what he didn't say. So, I don't know too much about it.
Well, he didn't say anything. He literally, the guy asked him, and he sort of shook his head, looked angry, and took his ponytail, his man bun, and left. Walked off the interview, pretty angry. And then he's since clarified those comments and said he will play international football till he retires from football. So at least 1 year then.
Yeah, I mean, and it must be tough for him because no one can question his commitment to Wales. They really shouldn't. So for them to want to get the scoop and find out what he's going to say, they should know by now that Gareth Bale will say what he wants when he wants, and he doesn't need to have to deal with that. So look, I haven't seen too much of that reaction here, obviously, because I guess no one in Austria really cares. But it's like you can't knock Gareth Bale's commitment to Wales. Like, it's not Like when you saw what Ryan Giggs did, and like barely played in a friendly for in his 15 years as a Welsh player, and Bale plays every minute of every game because he wants to, injured or not, he's there. I can kind of understand that he's just like, really, like we've just been spanked 4-0. I probably didn't play that well in my own opinion anyway.
Stop asking me stupid questions. Yeah.
And it's funny because like obviously after the Dutch game today, I watched Dutch TV when I watch these games, and they had these long kind of interviews with the players afterwards, and they asked De Ligt how he's feeling, and De Ligt was very much like it was my mistake that cost us the game. And whereas in England we'd be like, oh, this is great stuff, like we got to write this down. Instantly the interviewer was like, no, Matthias, like it wasn't just you. You can't think that, which was unheard of. You get these interviewers in Holland, and when they're a bit more empathetic to the people that they're interviewing, it's no surprise, or it shouldn't be a surprise, that the players then respond with much more honesty. The Dutch players were clearly disappointed with today, but they spoke eloquently about what it's like to play in that team and what went wrong and what went right and how things really felt at the moment, and they're doing it within half an hour of the game finishing. So to see what British players have to deal with British press, the difference is vast.
And finally, in terms of the Euros, defending champions Portugal out. So I'll ask you this question first, and then we'll come back to the game. Cristiano Ronaldo, is his time up? 36 years old. We've asked him Bale at 31. Therefore, surely Cristiano is gone. Is he?
No. I mean, it's the same deal. Well, like Cristiano Ronaldo is so dedicated to the sport of football that it's almost like Stanley Matthews type thing. Like you could see him playing into his late 40s. Like it may not be in a top league and it may not be for Portugal, but he's going to be capable. And I can't imagine him turning around and saying, "My body can't do this anymore." Yeah. So it's I don't know, but like Ronaldo will be at the next World Cup almost certainly, because Portugal will probably qualify. I guess they'll qualify. It's more difficult to qualify for a World Cup if you're a European team, so they may not do it. But if they do, he'll be there and he'll be giving everything for his country, because he, again, like lots of players, he really does care about playing for his country. It's something that he can. I mean, it's clear. Like obviously I don't know him personally, but you know that it matters to him. He does not want to lose.
He is the consummate professional in every way, Cristiano Ronaldo. You can't doubt, his dedication to his body is incredible. I mean, we laughed at the sort of Coke stuff earlier on in the Euros, but that just, if you ever watched anything about Cristiano Ronaldo outside of football, he is just dedicated to keeping himself as fit as possible. I mean, he's a specimen, isn't he? He looks better now than he did at 26, which is incredible in itself, because, as my physio was telling me the other day, the body starts degenerating after 25. It's all downhill from there. To maintain that physique and that level of fitness is just absolutely incredible. I mean, the guy could play till he's 40 if he carries on the way he is, quite feasibly. I think he's an athlete. He's an absolute wonderful player, and we should cherish him while he's playing in world football, is my opinion.
I will say one thing before we go overboard on the Ronaldo loving. I'm thrilled that Portugal got knocked out. I'm absolutely over the moon.
They've got the Belgian boys at centre back. I'm happy with. I love it. The Tottenham boys.
Let's have a new name on the trophy, right? Like Portugal won it last time. Belgium haven't won it in donkey's years. England have never won the Euros. Let's have a new name on the trophy. So Portugal. Obrigado, but bugger off.
We've lost some big sides, haven't we? The Dutch gone as well. Italy nearly went. That was very, very close. So it's been a good Euros, I would say, so far, despite it being delayed a year and being called Euro 2020 when it's in 2021, and despite the fact that there's only small crowds there. It should be better actually next round. I think Wembley gets 45,000 and then sort of like 60,000 for the final, which 60,000. Anyone who's been to the Spurs Stadium, that is a lot of noise and that is a lot of fans. So
it'll be a lot of sandwiches. 60,000 corporate people. When the final is France versus, I don't know, let's say France versus Germany, and no one can come into England because they can't afford to quarantine. We're going to have lots of UEFA bods there. Like I'd like to think it's going to be a great atmosphere, but I just don't see it, and that's a shame. It really is a shame. Like I get COVID, I understand why, but when you look at the noise that you've seen in certainly in the Budapest
Hungry.
games,
Oh, I love Budapest anyway. That just makes me love Budapest even more. It's a brilliant city, wonderful city.
It feels like a missed opportunity that these games are going to be held in England, and worst of all, this might be England's like last chance of hosting a tournament before we go, because like the English people are not the most liked, and if they turn around and say, well, you had home advantage in 2020, and we're like, hang on a second, but the only reason we did is because Brussels didn't build their stadium, because it should have been in Brussels, the semis and the final. It would feel a bit cheated, but yeah, it is lovely to have tournament football in the summer. It's lovely to see games that matter, because as we know from Spurs, like pre-season starts in a week for Spurs. So as soon as the Euros are done, we're all going to be sitting here talking about this signing from wherever and that signing, and how much money we can get rid of. So football doesn't sleep.
Doesn't
and
stop.
that's always
doesn't
good.
stop. And nor do we, HG. Nor do we. We'll be here all the way through all of it. Yeah. So in terms of the game tonight, it was a bit of a cracker, wasn't it? That was probably one of the closest games in the Euros so far, I thought.
Yeah, it could have gone either way. I felt like Belgium were a little bit profligate. I think Portugal did all right once they made a few changes. Yeah, it was an interesting one, because Portugal's strength, they do have strength going forward. The people they brought off the bench could have easily started the game in many cases, but as I said, it's not just the Spurs connection. I mean, I did used to live in Belgium too, which probably helps. But
he's lived everywhere as the Harlow Globetrotter, everywhere.
Yeah, well, not everywhere, but it's a few countries in Europe now, and Belgium will always have a place in my heart, because I mean, I was more the Flemish-speaking side than the French-speaking side, but still, like Belgium, they are a football-mad country, and they've come from pretty much nowhere and created these amazing world-class talents. Yeah, we want to see them do well. So, at least I want to see them do well. But yeah, I don't know. It's football. I just love football.
Don't we all? Right, let's get to some of this Tottenham Hotspur stuff then. So if you've got questions, fire them in. Now's the time to do it. The one thing I overlooked earlier, silly me, we spent a whole session on Friday doing a pod about Nuno, a pod of video. I don't know what to call it. And I didn't even give you the offer, did I? Didn't even give you the offer. So Nuno,
yeah,
or Gerrard, who is your preferred?
Nuno or Gerrard? Yeah, I'm a sucker for potential, so I probably would go Gerrard there too. I think that. Well,
when you met your missus, did you say I'm a sucker for potential?
No, well, she obviously did. I don't know if I'm ever going to reach it, but no, it's. I think it's well known that when guys pick wives, that they want the women to say the same, and when girls pick husbands, they want the man to change and become something better. Look, I just like my first choice probably would. I mean, once he became available, was always Conte. Outside of that, I know a lot about German football, so I was looking there for managers. I was looking at Oliver Glasner. But like Spurs seem to be okay with someone coming in with a plan, and then because then we can give them time. Like with Mourinho, the whole point was he didn't need time. Mourinho was just a winner, and he'd change it. Yeah. So even if he never really had a proper preseason, and of course that we had to deal with COVID and all those other things which are true, I think Spurs fans deep down would prefer to have someone who is looking to be the best they can be, and maybe has a ceiling that can get us to where we want to be. The issue, the standing with the club is in many ways the problem. You look at when Klopp went to Liverpool. Klopp had won the German league a couple of seasons. He'd done the double, I think, there one season. Yes, he'd gone through a bit of a bad stage when he got sacked by Dortmund, but he kind of got to the end of his 6-7 year stay there. And I think certainly a lot of people in Germany were surprised that he picked Liverpool. But Liverpool at that point they had a decent standing in the game. Brendan Rodgers had overseen a bit of a failure, but they'd finished second the season before. They'd done really well. And I just think that that's also the type of club that Klopp as a person likes to work at. Spurs don't really have that. We're always the big pretender. We are the Schalke. We are the unstable club, and it's unfortunate that we are. I don't want to say we're looking for dregs, because we're not. These managers are really good, but we don't have that cachet, the ability to really get the best people to want to come to us. So we're looking for someone who, I mean, again, someone like Potter, who's thinking like, I want to use you to then go somewhere else. I think when it comes to managers, that's still where we are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, a few transfer bits. So Dusan Vlahovic is the latest name. Have I said that right, HG?
It's close enough. Yeah, just call him Doosan.
Dusan Vlahovic.
Vlahovic.
Vlahovic. Uh,
Okay, yeah, the
21 goals.
Fiorentina striker.
Yes. 21 goals in 37 Serie A appearances last season. Fiorentina. What's your view on him? The worry is, can I just say, sorry, I should have put in there. The worry is we're being linked with a lot of strikers.
Look, like I don't know. Like I've said this millions of times, we're not selling Kane this summer, right? I just don't see us doing it. Like if we go out and spend 150 million on players, and then you start to think, okay, maybe we need to recoup this money. But right now, we're looking for a striker to play with or without Kane, either as a backup or as someone who can do. If Kane wants to be a number 10, someone who can lead the line. Vlahovic is 6'3", 21, very left-footed, but 21 goals, as you said, in 37 games. It may only be one season in Serie A that he's done that. But Spurs, again, we have to take a few punts. If we can get him for a decent fee, then that's the type of thing that Spurs need to be doing. There's no guarantees, there never are. But I like the idea of it, because we do long term. We do need a couple of strikers, because Kane will leave at some point. He will, and Vlahovic at 21, if he learns from Kane for a year and then becomes the main man, that's good too. We can't really. It's not like we can't lose, but we have to make decisions on strikers. We have to get one or two in, and so Vlahovic, given his profile, his age, and what he's done, would be a decent signing, a more than decent signing.
Another one we're being loosely linked to is Victor Osimhen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good pronunciation?
Yeah, that's not bad. To be fair, I don't really know how to say his surname, because it doesn't seem particularly Nigerian. I think he's Nigerian, is Victor. But
Napoli is that? Yeah.
Yeah, Napoli spent a lot of money to sign him last summer. A huge amount of money. He was at Lille before.
45 million. To be honest. Yeah. Very fast, apparently.
I suspect that Napoli either need some money, because I don't know why they'd be selling him otherwise. I don't think it's a case of him not fitting in there. So it might just be financial need, but they need to get him, and he may want to go. Maybe he's not settled in Italy. I just don't know. But Spurs are going to be looking at players that can be strikers at Spurs for the next 4 or 5 years. We're going to be looking at strikers who are 24 and younger. Yes, it might be a good idea as a squad to get someone like Ings just in case for the last few years of his career, but I think Spurs, that they'll be looking probably further afield for a striker. So Osimhen or Vlahovic, I mean they are so different that you could get both. But I think if we went for both this summer, then Kane is leaving. I mean that's just it. We are ripping the plaster off rather than trying to ease the exit. But I don't know. We'll see. There is a long way to go, and without a manager, and our director of football hasn't really started work yet. It is all just speculation.
July the 1st, it'll all kick off. There'll be 6 players coming through the door within the first week, and 6 going out, I guess. Let's have a look. What else?
Lovely. That would be lovely to see, really.
It really would. It really would. Richard says, what do the Cheeseheads think of Renato Sanchez? Able, good winning worker. That's the word, but I don't think a lot of him, if I'm being really honest. HG?
Love him.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. I like we've talked about this a lot on the pod. That if you're going to play a 3-man midfield, you want one who can sit, and one who can knit, and one who can shoot. but like you need a creative one as well. And Renato Sanchez is the one who knits things together. He works extremely hard. You're right about that. But I think that Renato Sanchez is probably the type of number 8 that good teams have. Whether he fits into Spurs right now is a different question, because we've got a lot of number 8s, and we've had a lot of number 8s for a very long time. But I think he's a quality player, and I think that perhaps Portugal might have been better off tonight had they started with a big dominant DM, someone like Danilo or Carvalho, had Sanchez knitting things together, and then maybe a real creative number 10 in front, whether that was Bruno Fernandes or even bringing Bernardo Silva inside. I think he is a really good player, and he won't be at Lille for very long.
No.
Where he goes next will be a major thing for him, because he did flame out at Bayern. He was super young when that happened. He's still only 23, almost 24, I think. He's not old, but I think Renato Sanchez is a quality player. I just don't know where he fits in at Spurs, because that is a case of we don't know how we're going to play. We don't know how we want to play. And Sanchez, although he's a quality midfielder and can probably play in anything, it would mean selling Ndombele probably, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that the two of them would coexist in the same team. And I think that if we could get some decent money for Ndombele, the club might be interested this summer in doing it. He's losing almost certainly his 2 best friends at the club.
Yeah.
So look, I don't know, but I'd like to see Ndombele stay. I think Renato Sanchez is a fantastic birthday because he shares it with me. But he's a quality player. He's absolutely quality.
Hard worker. Move on. Puskas Arena will host the Champions League final soon. Great stadium. That was just for comment, really. I think it's fantastic arena. Love it.
You and we both love Budapest. I mean, it's
only
3 hours away for me.
Oh, it's same really.
Cheap, and it's beautiful, and it's got everything you could ever dream of. Like, I saw the pictures of the Dutch fans today. I know exactly where they were when they were kind of celebrating, or certainly being together before the game. It is a lovely stadium. It's just a shame that they have the government they do, because I don't agree with that, obviously.
Well, it's basically a dictatorship, but yeah.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful city and a lovely stadium, and I think it would have been nice to have more games there, because I think today might have been the last one for Budapest. So it's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're going to miss out.
Well, UEFA money talks. Valverde, possible manager thoughts. For me, unlikely, if I'm being really honest. I'm not sure if we fit his profile of a club he would want to manage. HG, what's your view on Valverde?
Can I ask what you mean by that? What kind of club does he want to manage?
Real Madrid.
Okay, so you think that we're just not big enough for him?
Basically, yeah.
Okay. To me, I guess it's always about English a little bit. Look, I realise that a lot of our players, are fluent in more than one language, the way things are right now. But we have seen it. Like, if a manager comes in and can't really communicate, it could be a problem. I don't know what his English is like. I don't really know much about Valverde before he went to Barcelona, if I'm honest. I know that he was in Spanish football and did well enough to get the Barcelona job. But again, it probably wouldn't be my first choice. There are foreign managers that I know more about.
I don't know what's going on. There's just a bit of interference when you're speaking as well. I don't know whether your headphones are playing up or not.
No is the short answer.
It's Dalek mode, but no. That's you're hammering the mic.
No.
Oh dear.
Well, maybe it slightly, but can you hear me?
Well, through a load of static, to be honest. So it sounds like you turned into a Dalek. So we'll wrap it there. We've been going for just over an hour, so that's fine. Tomorrow night we're going to be back. We're going to be talking about England's chances of progression against the Germans. We all know that is going to end. Oh, thanks for putting that comment on. We all know that's going to end in a penalty shootout, and I can't wait for it. I'm sure you can't wait for it either. HG, thanks for joining me this evening.
You are welcome.
Oh my God. It is like the Daleks have invaded. Okay. All right. Thanks very much. And come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Austria.